it seems you are ready for a challenge. So you probably went through the previous video, you've done the exercise, or you maybe have already prior knowledge of working with the pen tool. Now you can actually put your skills to the test. The first example here will be very simple. It's just straight lines. As before, we can use the pen tool and just simply click on each of these corners. Now, I recommend to set up fill to be no color, so no fill at all. The stroke can be set up to any color apart from white, obviously, just to make sure you can see it. And you can increase the stroke size even here in the appearance panel if you want to make it a little bit thicker. And all you have to do is to draw over this shape. Now, once you finish it, you can press Shift X to enjoy your final shape in its full splendor. Now, if I move on to the next one here, there's a little bit more that you can see. And obviously this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. So we have curves. Now it's up to you in what order you want to go through. This is merely a suggestion that this could be the next one, but you can also try this flame here on the right. What you can see in the layers is that I created two separate layers that are locked. One of them is the silhouette in the background, and another one on top of it is the anchors and handles, which if I turn off, then you will only see the silhouette. When you turn that back on, you can actually see the handles and the anchor points. So this can give you an indication where I placed my anchor points, but you don't have to follow this strictly. The only thing you need to keep in mind is try to use the least amount of anchor points you can. You can always count how many I have on the path, and if you can beat me, great, or even if you can just get close to it, that's already good. So if you are new to drawing with the pen tool, you might need to attempt this a couple of times before you can actually reach the amount of anchor points that I have here. And I leave it up to you whether you prefer to draw with the anchors and handles preview on or off. It's completely up to you. That's why I have it on a separate layer, so you can always turn it on and off, and it will turn it off on all of these shapes, so you can see it without them. But let's just go through this shape here. I'm going to again do the same thing, draw with just a stroke, set it up to, let's say, 3 points, zoom a little bit closer, and then I can start drawing. Now it's up to you where you want to start. I'm going to start up there, and then I will click and drag to create the first section. Now already here, I think that will look good, but I feel like I have to hold down the Alt key and adjust the next handle point, so it's going to be able to go in the right direction. You don't want it to go completely opposite direction, although in this case, even this one will work. So a couple of attempts before you will get a little bit of an idea how your path will work. So I can go all the way there, again, drag, and there's the next section. Then I can come up to the top and draw another one. Now, if you ever feel like you didn't really nail where that point should go, you can always hold down the space and move the point around. So holding down space, you can always position your anchor point somewhere else, and then still by holding down the mouse, you can adjust the handles. So holding down space can move the anchor point around and then continue adjusting your handles. Okay, now I can go to this next point here, and let's see, that's quite good, but I can already see that that handle won't work, so I hold down Alt key and just change the direction slightly, maybe to something like that. Then I can come down all the way here, click and drag, and I will actually have a nicer curve here than what was behind. So you can always actually improve the shape itself if you are doing it correctly. Something like that. Then I can go and drag out. Hold down space if you wish to move your point around. Something like that. And then here I'm going to just simply click on that point because I have to make a much smaller curve, and then click to finish. Now, obviously, this is much more difficult than just drawing straight lines, so don't be disheartened if you find it very difficult. If you think the pipe is too hard, move on to the next example and try that one. In the beginning, if you use a little bit more anchor points to achieve the outline, to be able to create the outline, then that's still fine. It is just an aim in the long run to try to get to less anchor points while you are drawing. And also, if you feel like your lines are not perfect in the beginning, it's again not a problem, because you can always go back and make edits to them. And that's why I wanted to show you here. So when I select a point like that there, if I feel like there is a break in there, there is like not a nice transition, I can always adjust the handles using the right arrow tool. The shortcut for that is A, and you can always amend these. And of course, you can move even the anchor point around. So I can move it up a bit. Then I can also adjust this handle here, and so on and so forth. So you can see it's very easy to make amends later on. So any part that you are not happy about, like this point here as well, didn't turn out the way I wanted it. So I'm just going to keep on editing and refining it. Now you might be wondering, why don't I use the smooth tool for these parts? Well, if you use the smooth tool, you will end up having a lot of additional anchor points. But I can show you what happens. So having this path selected, I switch to the smooth tool and I try to refine this section here. In some cases, it might work well, but you might end up having a lot of additional anchor points placed down, or maybe just simply the anchor points won't give you the shape that you need. So try to avoid using the smooth tool in this exercise. Focus on getting it right with the pen tool and with later amends by using the direct selection tool. So let me move on to this next example here. Quickly, I'm going to do this as well. I will start at the corner point like that, and then I can go down, click here in the middle and draw one segment, and then continue drawing further up around there and align it once again. I might need to move it up. Once again, don't forget, you can hold down the space key and adjust it that way. So that's another segment there, and then continue up. Now here again, I can hold down space to position it, and then hold down Alt to already prepare the next segment. And the way I set up my handle is that I try to align it to that next curve. So it really prepares the way it's going to work. And if you do a good job, you can even skip that point on the center of the curve like I did it before, and I can go straight to the next point at the end. Now you see that it didn't work out perfectly, and that is mainly because I didn't do the other handle well. So I can hold down the Command or Control key and adjust that side, then come back to this handle as well, hold down Command or Control and adjust it, and I keep adjusting both handles until I get it right. But you can see that once these are set up correctly, I could actually spare one point in the middle. So I could go back and do the same thing on the other side, but let's just practice this once again. First of all, I click on this point because I don't need that big handle on top. Instead, I'm going to click somewhere around here, define this section, and then I can go all the way on the other side and draw this part just like that, and then hold down Command or Control and adjust the other side, and then also adjust this side until it's the right size. I could even refine this further if I want to, get it out a bit, and I can also move that anchor point a bit further, and then just adjust my lines a little bit even more, like that. Now at this point, I can decide to remove this handle here by just clicking on the last anchor point. But what I want to do is to be able to create this whole bottom curve without putting any additional anchor points in the middle. Of course, that would be the easier one. If I just click on that last anchor point and then click and drag at the bottom, I can set up half of my curve, something like that. It is quite close. And then I can come up here and then click and drag, and later on, holding down the Control or Command, I can adjust my handles. And don't forget, you can also split the handles if you ever need to have each side slightly differently. So if I select that point, I can hold down Alt and adjust only one side and keep the other side as is. But let me go back one step and let me try to do the same thing without adding an anchor point at the bottom. So what I will need is to hold down the Alt key and drag this handle all the way down there, something like that. Then I can click and drag on the other side and create that curve. Now, of course, it's not ready because I have to hold down the Command or Control key and drag the handle even further out on both sides. And when I get it right, you see it actually was easier to create a perfect curve by skipping that center point there at the bottom. So this really proves the point that less anchor points will give you more control. The trick is to learn how to set up your handles and how to adjust them. And also, of course, the placement of the anchors is important. Now, I could spend hours of explaining how to do it, but believe me, the best way to get good at this is practice, practice, practice. And after that, some more practice. Really, believe me, it takes time to get good at using the pen tool. And even I, although I've been using it for years, I still feel like I can improve on my skills. And the best way that you can tell that you are good at it, if you can draw with the least amount of anchor points and you get the placement of anchors and handles right the first time. But now that we've seen these first three shapes, I would like to remind you of something. Although I love the pen tool, I'm not a purist and I don't draw everything with the pen tool. So if it makes sense to use something else, then I would obviously combine tools. And that's again another important thing to remember. Don't try to stick to one tool. Some tools might do things much better than others. Here's a brilliant example, the snail. Well, I can use the pen tool for the bigger curves. Like this one here, I can just click and drag. By the way, we can already set it up the same way as before and click and drag on the other side. See what I'm doing? Holding down Control, dragging this one further up, drag that down slightly, and we could avoid that point in the middle. Then I can just click on this last point because we need that corner point there. And then instead of going over the eyes, I am going to actually click somewhere here and create that curve. So I completely ignored the eyes for now. You will see why. Because I feel like it's easier just to move ahead and completely ignoring those details. Not because they are difficult to draw, it is because it's much easier to draw them with a different technique. So I can add another point there. Then we can create a long curve at the bottom here, like that. Then we can draw a straight segment here at the bottom, or we can even curve it slightly like that. Then continue drawing and then finish it like that. Now, I did a sloppy job here at the bottom, so it's not perfect, but obviously I would have been able to do it with less points, but for now it's going to be all right. But the main important element here is how do I do the eyes? Well, when we look at this, these are perfect circles, so why not use the ellipse tool? I'm just switch to the ellipse tool quickly, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key with the selection tool and duplicate it so it's exactly the same size. Then I use the pen tool again and just draw a line there which goes from this point up. And then once I have this line, remember the tool called width tool. With that, you can click at the bottom and increase the size of it, and maybe also increase this size here on the top just ever so slightly, like that. Now if I select that circle, press Shift X, and on the other one as well, and I press Shift X on the main shape as well, now you can see that all I need to do is to Alt click and drag that section as well, place it down, and then switch to the rotate tool, click at the bottom point so that's fixed, and then set it up in the angle that we need, just like that. And once it's ready, to make sure that these elements are all joined together, first I select the paths, go up to Object, expand them so they become field shapes, and that way I can select all of these elements together And using the shape builder, I can hold down Shift and combine all of them together into one outline. So I save myself that struggle to go over the edges and draw these perfect circles and those nice shapes coming down from the eyes, because this way they are exactly the same size and shape. So although the pen tool is a brilliant drawing tool, don't forget that you can always combine different techniques together. That's the key really whenever you work with Adobe applications. Don't stick to one tool, combine them together and experiment. It's very important to feel free to experiment. You might come up with better ways of drawing these shapes, but it is crucial to get good at using the pen tool. So that's all that you need to focus on in this exercise. So I don't mind if you are actually drawing all around the eyes as well using the pen tool, because it's going to improve the way you work with this tool, and then later on you can start combining the tools together. Now once you finish these 6 shapes, you find 3 additional shapes at the bottom, which are again slightly more complex. Probably the last one is the most complex out of all of them. But again, these are all great exercises. And just to inspire you, I'm going to speed up the way I do this, but I'm going to draw that portrait of the girl on the right, so you can see the way I place down my anchor points. And then I will leave you to practice in your own time. Feel free to do this over and over a couple of times until you get good at it. And then you can move on to the next video, in which there will be a so much easier topic, the distort and transform tools, that I still consider being part of the drawing techniques in Illustrator.